familiar little characters in the Kalahari. In spite of their gregarious nature, pied babblers, strangely, have almost been ignored by science. A pioneering project between UCT and Cambridge University is now rectifying this. But as researchers are discovering, the facts on this conspicuous little bird are not all black and white. The Kuruman River Reserve, 17 kilometers from the Botswana border. Dr. Amanda Ridley from UCT's Fitzpatrick Institute and Nicola Rehani from Cambridge set out to find their subjects, the pied babblers. The social lives of these birds have been the focus of Amanda's work for the past 7 years.
Most species, just one male and one female, breed and raise their own young, but in this species, individuals, adults, stay on the territory and help to raise the young of others, which doesn't make sense according to Darwin and the theory of evolution. So we're trying to understand why these birds are different, why they do things different. Why would you help to raise someone else's young rather than breeding yourself?
When she started her project, a major challenge was finding her subjects in this wilderness.
I don't actually know where the group is right now. They were over here before.
Fortunately, she found a way around that. Each group responds to a specific whistle. Vocalizations are important to the gregarious babblers. Even the latecomers are greeted noisily.
See how that dominant male puffs himself up? When the whole group has a reunion like that, the dominant male asserts his position, puffs up and makes this big loud vocalization.
Amanda begins and ends each session by weighing every bird individually. She lures them onto the scale one by one.
The point of the weight at first light is to see how heavy they are. That gives us information about the development of young. It gives us information about the likelihood of dispersal. Often when individuals are about to disperse, they get a lot heavier. And it gives us information about the status of the group. So groups often don't breed until they're quite a good weight. And especially a dominant female, if she gains a lot of weight quickly, we know that she's about to lay an egg. She can gain up to 10 grams in 2 days. And that gives us a lot of indication that the group is about to breed.
There are 18 babbler groups in the reserve, each occupying its own well-defined territory. To monitor them all, she and Nicola have to do a lot of walking. Close up, they watch what the birds get up to and record their every movement on handheld computers. Pied babblers feed on almost anything small. Lizards, scorpions, and insects like caterpillars are their favorites. While the group forages, there's always one watching the other's backs.
The sentinel will be perched directly above the foraging group, and if the foraging group moves away a little bit, because they can't find any food in that area, the sentinel will move with them.
The babbler's sentinel system attracts other birds to forage with them. And then there are those that have learned to exploit the system, like drongos. When babblers are around, there's sure to be one near. When it spots a babbler with a particularly appealing catch, it lets out a caw. The babblers dash for cover and the drongo swoops down to take the food. Occasionally, the alarm call is for real. A predator has the babblers scrambling to mob it.
They do alarm at a lot of things, both aerial and terrestrial, but it's mainly pale chanting goshawks, slender mongooses and yellow mongooses that we have seen actually trying to attack the babblers. We have seen one babbler get taken by a large eagle, and they do mob the Cape cobras and the puff adders around here, but we've never seen a snake try to get an adult or a nestling.
With the fox on its way, the babblers let off some steam. Amanda calls it play fighting.
Often they chill out after a big predator alarm and play together. Maybe it's a bonding thing, I don't know, but after some kind of major situation, they often go together in one tree and end up play fighting. Especially the young ones play fight, and they'll chase each other around a tree and rough and tumble and wrestle each other. Sometimes it turns into something a bit more aggressive, and they end up having a wee dominance competition.
Nesting time is most important for the study. Only the dominant pair in a pied babbler group produces chicks. The rest of the group help to raise the chicks by finding food and looking after them. Not many other birds do this, so Amanda wants to find out what the benefit of such a lifestyle is for the babblers.
By helping to raise someone else's young, you can't raise your own young. And while you're actively helping, you can't find your own group or your own breeding partner. So there's that cost, delayed reproduction. The other cost is a physical day-to-day cost. You're looking for food not just for yourself, but for young. So you're giving part of your food away, which means you have to spend more time foraging and less time vigilant. And you can lose a lot of weight to feeding the young. Or you won't be able to gain enough weight to be able to get into a condition to disperse or gain a breeding position, successfully fight for a breeding position. When we weigh them, that gives us information on exactly what the cost is to each individual. So it might be that when we see one individual feeding the young a lot more than the rest of the group, we want to know why that is. Is it because they're better foragers, so they can afford to do it, or is it actually very costly to them to feed young and they're doing it for a reason like paying to stay in the group? Because if they don't help a lot, maybe the dominant male will evict them. So we look at how good they are at foraging and how much weight they lose or gain according to how much they feed. And that tells us if one individual is carrying a greater cost, and then we can figure out why that individual is helping a lot more. Is it because he wants to stay in the group? Is it because he wants to impress the dominant female? So maybe she'll mate with him if the dominant male dies. Those sorts of things. So the weights give us that kind of information.
A nest they have been monitoring is causing concern. The parents haven't been feeding it often enough, so they think there might be something wrong. Getting up to the nest is always a challenge. Nicola bears the proof of that.
I think I'm going to have to push it up to get it over that bed.
Okay, ready to push it up? Ready?
Ready?
Go!
Okay, walk it in. Okay. If you're going to move fully, you rest on the mat. Okay. Okay, am I good to go?
Yeah.
While the parents voice their disapproval, the reason for the low feeding rate is revealed: a single chick.
It's much younger, so maybe it hatched later.
Normally, pied babblers have 2 to 3 chicks, so a predator has possibly visited the nest. A blood sample is taken to sex the chick and rings are quickly fitted. Finally, the chick is weighed to check its growth.
No way.
34.6.
I don't believe that.
There's blood on that wing.
I know.
It's absolutely fine.
But we try and spend as little time handling the chicks as possible because it stresses out the adults. They're in the tree above us now, being a little bit worried for their little one. So we'll get them back up there as soon as we can.
The parents return as soon as the chick is back in the nest. But the most dramatic and dangerous event in a Pied Babbler chick's life is about to start. Only by monitoring the nests around the clock can researchers hope to see this. Only 15 days after hatching, these adults are encouraging their 2 chicks to leave the nest. They can barely hold on to the branches, let alone fly. Yet, still the parents keep calling. With nightfall approaching and a storm brewing, it all seems like terribly bad timing. Even so, the adults keep calling and the chicks take the leap. On the ground, the adults are desperate to get each youngster to follow them. This is a most dangerous time as many predators are already on the prowl.
We've seen the yellow mongooses actually predating the wee fledglings as they run around.
The first chick hop-skips to the safety of a new tree. But the second chick leaves it so late, Nicola can barely see it moving along. Realizing it won't make it to the chosen spot, the adults lead it to another, closer bush.
Well, I think they left it a little bit late, but apparently the chicks were all right and they've made it quite far from their nest tree, so they've done quite well, I think. I think one of the chicks has managed to get into the tree with the group, which is good for that chick, and then the other one, who was the slower one to follow, will probably end up roosting by himself, but good news for him is that he's in a tree.
Nicola is still mystified how the adults persuade their fledglings to follow. Is this an important survival strategy of the species?
They spend a period of time, about usually 2 to 3 days, training the chicks with the call that they're making just now. And what they do is every time they fly in to feed the chicks, they give this special call, and the chicks learn to associate that call with food, we think.
To get scientific backing for her observations, Nicola began filming the movements of her subjects.
When the fledglings have just fledged like 1 or 2 days ago and they're not very good at moving around, is they do what we call baiting. So they'll walk up to the chick with a food item, show the food item to the chick, and then stand a little way away from the chick. So very short distances, like less than a metre usually. But the chick will only then receive the food item if it approaches the adult in response to hearing the call.
A few days later, the chicks were ready for their first flying lessons. Calling, the adults fly off, and the chicks take a leap into the unknown. At sunset, babblers have a little rough and tumble. The dominant male and female roll onto their backs and allow the youngsters to climb all over them. Nicola is hoping that by the end of her study, she'll have these little Kalahari characters figured out. Or could that be the other way around?